guys, welcome back to the channel. It's him here. Today I'm going to do a deck video for you guys on Lackey for my updated rotation Patriarchs list. So last time I did a Patriarchs list was the one that I used in the Lackey or the Zoom online locals tournament, and this one, the one that I have right now, is updated for GoC Phase 1. So I'm going to try and go through it as quick as possible. This deck was inspired by some of Tyler Stevens' builds, Joe Schaefer's builds, as well as some of my own inspirations for what the deck is trying to be doing. I had this video made up originally, but after watching Tyler's, he gave me a little bit more inspiration to kind of fiddle with some stuff. So if you recognize Golden Calf is in the list, because I tend to agree with Tyler about having Golden Calf in your list is probably a good thing, with all the territory class enhancements running around and territory class characters. So without further ado, we'll get into it. What is Patriarchs? Well, Patriarchs is kind of one of my favorite themes in the game. It's in my favorite color, blue, and it revolves around using the Patriarch kind of like value engine to pump out a ton of cards from deck, get a lot of card advantage, and then band in large numbers. So every kind of Patriarch list has the ability to band in large numbers. It just depends on which type of Patriarchs you're using. If you're using all 5 of the Patriarchs, Joseph, Judah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, your list will probably look a little bit different. You have 3 visitors and Cloud of Witnesses Abraham, most likely, rather than Father Abraham. If you're doing the Meek version, you want to play Father Abraham, but you're likely still going to have at least Judah in here to be able to band in Father Abraham with Judah and some other stuff. But what this list is doing specifically is we're leaning pretty heavily on Noah coming into our band to kind of shuffle away Abraham's descendants or bless the nations. Now, what our list is doing is we're kind of trying to come in with Father Abraham on the first attack, converting to Meek, getting all that draw advantage, getting a Meek character out of deck, drawing 3 cards, and then attacking with a 1/1 Meek character who is under protection from Enoch and Goshen, and then Mary on leader turns, and then giving us first initiative to be able to play cards like Noah and Hezron into battle, banding them in through Abraham's descendants and bless the nations. So the way that we're doing this is that when Abraham comes in, we're going to use bless the nations or Abraham's descendants when we have initiative, and then band in all those characters, maybe even Isaac and Jacob, Eber depending on what we're trying to do, and go ahead and sequence them in the proper order. So you want like Hezron and Eber first. Eber can generate a soul or bounce an artifact for you. But if we don't need to soul gen, he can go ahead and grab Exiles, and Exiles will kind of do the same thing that Hezron's doing, and they're both CBN if we control a Meek character, which will be Father Abraham. And so that'll recur some of our star cards from the discard pile, and with Hezron specifically, our Blue Genesis enhancements. And that we'll be able to put them on top, and then we can use Isaac to draw them off the top, or Jacob to go and search for them. So we don't need all of them. They're just together, they're kind of helpful. If we do Isaac, with just Isaac, you can get both of them back, but Jacob, you can get one of them, and then go get, or I guess band in Isaac and get the other one. But if you don't have Isaac, you can at least get one of them back. So, and then at the end of the chain, you band in Noah, converting to Meek, and he shuffles away Abraham's descendants or blessed nations, goes back to being and then prevents cards when he's converted to Meek, and that allows you to continue to have the protection in a way where it's almost impossible for your opponent to, I guess, negate the band. So they have to deal with all those banded characters. And since Eber and Hezron are CBN, and Jacob is CBI, it's not really very easy for your opponent to do. Plus, they have to work through the CBP. If we have Babel up, they've got to work through that negate. If we have Goshen up, they've got to work through the toss effect. And if we have Enoch in territory, they have to work around his protection, or Mary, they have to work around his protection. So it becomes a very problematic issue for our opponent to solve. We present them with a question. If they can't find the solution, we usually win the rescue. And the great part about the list is that we can do it over and over and over and over again. So there's 16 star cards in the deck, and the real star of the deck, funnily enough, is numerous as the stars, which is allowing us to go ahead and reveal as many star cards from our hand as we want, and take that number of human heroes from deck discard or reserve. This is huge because we can recur the heroes that we lost. If they underdeck those heroes, we can grab them again. If they discard them, we can get them, and the only way that they can truly remove our characters is by banishing them. If I start to see a lot of banish effects in the game going off, I'm probably going to end up putting Covenant of Prayer in here to replace You Will Remain, but so far I haven't seen a ton of banish, so I'm not super worried about it. But if Numerous or one of our characters ever gets banished, they're kind of gone for good. And then we have to play a little bit more conservatively. Now, the rest of the deck is kind of built around that. So we have Offering Your Son, Faith, Emmaus Road, and Solomon's Dream to go ahead and search those. Each of them have additional effects, like Solomon's Dream and Emmaus Road can go and look at our opponent's hand, which is nice. That's something that we want to be doing. Faith can grab things from the discard pile. Emmaus Road can also be used as a battle winner in a pinch. So can Offering Your Son if your opponent is blocking with a animal. It can also be used to grab an animal from reserve, which is nice because we have 2 animals in reserve, being Leviathan and Coliseum Lions. And then for sacrifices in the list, because it's recurable, but also it allows us to negate annoying cards in our opponent's territory, like the Cross, for instance, to be able to play our dominance, and then underdeck an evil card in their territory or battle, so it can be used as a battle winner as well. So that's kind of our enhancement lineup. All of these are relevant. Even some of the star abilities on these are relevant, like the reveal from hand. If you have no hero, get a hero from deck on Abraham's Ascendant is really important. Plus the nations can work really well with Offering Your Son, or cards like Prosperity, if we draw those. Just allow us to go ahead and draw that card. And if we know it's on top too, we can also go into battle with somebody like Isaac or Abraham to go and draw the cards off the top. The best solution for this is if we have Book of the Covenant out already and a Covenant active, we can just use the draw one that we get from that to do it. Or if it's round 2, we can go and get Covenant with Philistia with Book of the Covenant to go and do that anyways. To draw 2 cards. So it's nice. There's lots of ways of being able to use that, and there's a lot of top deck effects with the star cards that our characters are using, so like Noah and Enoch. We can actually take advantage of them in this deck with some of our covenants and some of the other cards that are in it. Supporting cards around the idea, Goshen I talked about a little bit already, but it's tossing all enhancements that are of a different brigade while we have a Meek or a Patriarch character in battle. So we're usually having a Meek, almost always, or a Patriarch character in battle. Sometimes we'll go in with Jacob and Isaac if we need to. But if we're peeking into our opponent's hand with something like First Sacrifice or Solomon's Dream or Emmaus Road, or even the Repentant Thief, then we're not essentially worried. We know what they're going to be doing, and then we can kind of play around that and build our strategy. Storehouse, kind of protect our deck, hand and reserve from our opponent. Goshen's also giving us protection for reserve. It also gives us reserve access, which is really nice to be able to grab our OT enhancements. Protecting our hand in reserve is nice because there's a lot of the post-Eliud Jehu Eliud combo going around, and that can really attack our reserve. We're not 100% worried about that combo because we have cards like Mary and Enoch, And then even if certain cards do get discarded away, we can use numerous to get them back. But we also have Babble in the list to be able to kind of mitigate some of those effects, depending on what they are, to keep our... I don't think Jehu might be CBP, but just to help with those effects. Babble just helps to alleviate some of the strain. So, can be noted that Goshen can sometimes be obtuse to work around. A lot of people find Goshen to be awkward because it can get in your way sometimes. I like Goshen in the way that it can get in your opponent's game plan because there's a lot of meat characters going into battle. And so if your opponent brings a meat character into battle, they now have to account for Goshen. If we ever don't want to deal with that, we can shuffle it away with Noah. We can negate it with our 3 woes, which then our 3 woes can be shuffled away with Noah so we can use it again. Or we can use one of our cards like Hungry Lions or Great Fish to be able to negate it to get around that kind of protection, to be able to play our cards like Scattered. So, more likely than not, we're going to be worried about cards like the Cross, but we have other ways of being able to deal with cards like the Cross. Sheol's in here to be able to recur our souls. I think there's a lot of searching going around, and being able to recur at least 4 souls with Sheol is nice with a new limit rule. So the add to battle effect is also really nice because we have limited banding in the deck. Hungry Lions and King of Edom are the only real ones that can band in the main deck, and then we need Coliseum Lions and Pride of Lions from the reserve or lurking in the main board to be able to actually do other banding. So Sheol's nice for that effect. Great Fish is good because it uses a battle winner as well as a defending character. It's also a great block if you can pair it with something like Chronicle of the Kings. I talked a little bit about Babble. We're using that for the awesome negate. There's a lot of brigades running around, and having the ability to be able to negate our opponent's character is really nice. The effect should be noted that the sight can actually be used because we can go ahead and grab OT evil humans from our reserve, those being, I guess, only Foreign Wives. If we ever really need to get Foreign Wives, we can do that and then shuffle Babble away with Noah so that we can play it again later. And we can always search up Babble with 2x2. Since 2x2 is a dual brigade card, we can use it with both our offense and our defense. And we can also use it to go ahead and grab animals from deck or reserve. Since we have Noah, we can go ahead into reserve as well at territory class speed. So Livered's in here partially because it's a star card, as well as it allows us to get our Book of the Covenant active at the same time as our Golden Calf, which can be relevant in like the second round or something if we want to be using it. We don't really need to use Delivered on the first turn unless we really need it, but the option is always there because it's usually better to just like hold Delivered to round 2, so then if we activate Golden Calf, we can then activate Book to go ahead and grab our Covenant with Philistia and You Will Remain and Oath of Purity and stuff. So Dom's Chronicle of the Kings just helps us to win battles by negating cards. Can get rid of Golden Calves on our opponent's side, as well as temple artifacts like Book of the Covenant. It is an awesome battle winner that we can use to kind of stifle some of our opponent's moves. If they have ways of getting around our Goshen and stuff, we can kind of set that down to be able to keep them from doing it. Crowd's Choice is awesome because it can be used to search for anything in our deck, or our reserve. So having it in the list is really nice. It could be something else, but I just like the flexibility that Crowd's Choice gives us. So 3 rows, again, like I talked about before, a dominant speed negate that is CBN by nature is really powerful and hard for our opponent to stop. So having a way of doing that and then being able to do it multiple times, or just leave it in territory to be able to update the target every turn is also really nice. Harvest Time. Harvest Time is in here as Soul Gen. We have Eber for Soul Gen, so we don't necessarily need Harvest Time, but I feel like Harvest Time serves a special purpose to be able to allow us to peek into our opponent's deck, as well as generate some of our souls when we need them. if we ever need them on defense or on offense. So if we ever need an additional way to get our exiles out, maybe our distressed or our remnant, we can go ahead and pull those out, as well as humbled or blind, to be able to continue to stifle our opponent from doing things, and then go ahead and pull their souls out too. So soul gen plus utility within the deck, because our souls have lots of effects that we can use them for. And since it's regardless of protect, it works through our storehouse and our opponent's storehouse. And then Shipwreck, it's in here to deal with our opponent's babbles and like Heritage Temples and Shields. So being able to get rid of those at dominant speed is really nice, because it's just a good answer to be able to solve a lot of the issues that we're having in the game right now with like strong, well, it's not issues, it's just solving the problem of good fortresses. And if you don't have a way of getting rid of them, it'd be really hard to kind of stabilize. So that's why Shipwreck's in here. It also, in emergency cases, can be used to get rid of our Goshen or Storehouse if they're obstructing us from winning. So like if our opponent's playing a Assyrian band, get rid of a Storehouse, and then we can reveal our hand to our opponent and actually not have to underdeck all of our characters whenever they band in with the Revisaurus, Revshaka, and Tartan. Son of God and Second Coming, pretty like self-explanatory. Son of God's there for the rescue, negate a lost soul and rescue it. If they have annoying lost souls in territory, we can negate it and rescue it. Just saves us from doing an extra rescue. And then Son of God, usually to Second Coming to be able to get that additional rescue, so we only have to really rescue 3 times. Second Coming should be noted that it can be used with all of your other good dominants. So if you really need to get something else in the deck, you just go Second Coming to Crowd's Choice to grab anything. Or you can just grab one of your other good dominants like Harvest Time, Chronicles, or Thruos. So very useful. Second Coming and Son of God are just pretty much essential, standard most lists. Muscles, go through really quick. Blind to negate New Testament. Prosperity to get those extra draws. And since we are okay with discarding cards because we can recur a lot of them, so like our blue enhancements, our Genesis enhancements, our star enhancements, and our good, like our human heroes can all be recurred. We've got like Hezron, Enoch, or Eber to Exiles, and Enosh, and Numerous as the stars. We can, get rid of an Enosh that's not really doing anything, and then draw 2 cards. So, and then get Enosh back later on. Covet's in there because it can help disrupt our opponent's strategies, take one of their stronger souls like Wicked, and then put it into our territory and give them back Covet, which isn't going to do anything for them for the most part. So it's very good. Humble, to be able to make our stuff CBP, all of our things CBP, helps us work through things like Jesse and Obed or Enosh or Akeem, to keep our soul's abilities working, as long as we keep our hand count low. So usually better used on offense because we can control the size of our hand than it is on defense. But you can use it defensively too. And then Exiles in here helps release the captives in case our opponent ever tries to capture all of our characters. Can grab our artifacts if we can't get to our Book of the Covenant or Storehouse. And the ability to be able to recur star cards. Just really good. So that's why it's in this list. Distressed. Distressed is in here to help deal with things like Jesse and Akeem and other Enoch type effects, or I guess trying to think of the disciples like Judas. I think James is the other one. Maybe it's Thomas, who like if you draw, it's the territory class, they can go ahead and grab dominance, just helps deal with that, and things like Jonah. So remnants, flexible, we can go ahead and grab Mary with it if we get it on round 2, but also just to like take away assets from our opponent and then force them to get rid of remnant. And if they can't get rid of remnant, we just hold that asset there until we don't need to hold it there anymore. So like if they have a Foreign Wives in territory and we want to go and draw a ton of cards, we just pull their Foreign Wives out of their territory and force them to try to figure out how to deal with that. So I guess defense here, Deceiver to go ahead and grab those evil characters we have. We got 4 humans here, so Esau, the King of Edom, Foreign Wives, and the Condemned Thief. Being able to go ahead and grab any of those at any time is nice past round, or during the second round. During the first round, he's really here so that if we get Esau off of Jacob, or Isaac, if we get Esau off of Isaac, we can go ahead and find the King of Edom to band in Esau with the King of Edom having that play effect. So Esau, of course, is allowing us to be able to grab the 4 animals that we have from deck, and then discard one of them to be able to draw 2 and then play an OT enhancement. Really effective because we can go ahead and play like our Scattered or Seized by Babylon and then force our opponent to have a negate. If they don't have a negate, or we just use Scatter and it's CBN, there's nothing our opponent can do, especially since he's CBI. So Hungry Lions is in here because it has a star ability that's relevant. Ups our star count for Numerous, since we have 15 in here, 16 including Numerous itself. It's a little less than 1/3 of the deck. It helps to keep us having star cards to be able to reveal with Numerous to be able to grab cards. Its ability is also relevant. It helps us against the Jehu Eliud band by being able to negate a good card. So like we can go ahead and negate Eliud, then band into a Lion, negate Lion to force them to discard a card from their hand, draw 2 off of that band. Negate Lion, of course, we're banding to that. I mentioned King of Edom earlier. He's kind of in there for banding. He has 2 other really relevant abilities. So banishing good cards from our opponent's discard pile means they can't recur them. Most significantly, Son of God. If we banish Son of God with King of Edom, they can't get it back because he's CBI. So if they're not preventing him, there's nothing they can do. Their Son of God is just banished unless they have Covenant with Prayer. And I can also go ahead and take a Crimson enhancement from my reserve as long as I have another Edomite. So last one, Stubborn Heifer. Stubborn Heifer's in here as a negate. So Stubborn Heifer is in here so that like if our opponent tries to respond to something like our Esau, we can go ahead and discard an evil card from our hand to be able to negate that, then force our opponent to have, I guess, another option, which will be difficult since Stubborn Heifer is CBI. So presents a lot of questions. The only issue is that once we use Esau twice, Stubborn Heifer is likely not going to have another animal in territory, so we'll just end up discarding Stubborn Heifer usually. But I mean, that's all right. Once we're that far ahead in blocks, we're not really worried about having Heifer anymore. We're doing more of like our Lion bands and recurring our Condemned Thief. I should go back and mention the Great Fish. It can negate up to X cards, so we can negate like everything depending on our opponent's good brigades, and then set aside a hero for 3 turns, and then shuffle it back shuffle it back after battle. So force them to have a response to that. If they do respond to it in special initiative, we can just negate it with Stubborn Heifer as long as she's in territory. So enhancements, Hypocrisy is really nice. Bounce is important in this list. Having an additional bounce other than Oath of Purity is nice. And being CPP is good because it can get around a lot of things. It also is a battle winner for us. So Lurking, Interrupt the Battle allows us to get an additional way of banding in characters, but also to go ahead and do our like big surprise line band. So you go ahead and grab Leviathan with all the different methods we have of getting him, like Storehouse or Offering Your Son, 2x2, or Covenant with Philistia. Block with him. Leviathan is get protected from our opponent's dominance, and then it allows us to get an animal, which is not as relevant as the first part, which allows us to grab a Job card, CBN. We go ahead and grab Pride of Lions. As long as we have lurking in hand, whatever they use to try to defeat Leviathan, we lurk in Colosseum Lions. At interrupt speed, we discard that and then play another enhancement, which will be Pride of Lions. Go ahead and grab our other 2 lions, which are Hungry Lion and Negev Lion, from deck, discard, or reserve, and then ban those ones in as well, forcing our opponent to discard a card from their hand, and then we draw 3, and we can also negate a good card or discard another enhancement if we need to. So that's the big lion play, and then once we do that, Pride of Lions, being CBN, shuffles itself once it's used by a lion. So we just keep doing that again and again and again, and we have a ton of lions to be able to continue to use. It also gives us extra animals to be able to discard with Esau. So very relevant. Scattered. Scattered could be Dissension Antioch, but it's in this list because I think Scattered is really good. There's a lot of bandy going around, and if our opponent doesn't have a way of stopping Scattered from going off, it's just going to get us the auto block. So Seized by Babylon can work as a pseudo negate since it is interrupt the battle, but it's a battle winner and a interrupt the battle effect, and just allows us to capture a ton of our opponent's cards, and it's CBP by a good card. Wages of Sin, it's kind of doing what the Emmaus Road is doing in our list, but for evil cards with discard effects. Sorry about that. I had to go and talk to somebody really quick, but I think I was talking about Wages of Sin. Really flexible in our deck, and can be used to grab evil cards with discard abilities from deck or reserve. So we have a lot of them in here, so like Negev Lion, Hungry Lion, Stubborn Heifer, Esau, Chronicles, Shipwreck, Sheol, and Stolen Blessing, and Colosseum Line. So there's a lot of targets, and if we need to, you can also use it as a battle winner. And since it underdecks itself, it can be used multiple times. So just an efficient use. Finally, we'll go through the reserve really quick. There are some pretty relevant stuff here in the reserve, specifically the Repentant Thief. Repentant Thief looks kind of weird sitting in the reserve. So like sometimes you'd like ask, I ask why it's here. Well, we can grab it with multiple different cards. So Remnant can grab it. He can grab the Repentant Thief. Numerous can grab it. And one other card, Deceiver can grab it. So why is it here? Well, the evil character side is really all we're using it for. We can use it as a hero in a pinch to be able to try to rescue with the Emmaus Road if all of our other heroes are gone. But the take an enhancement effect for our opponent's hand, CBP, is nice because it will allow us to always look at our opponent's hand. But taking a card from their hand is 2 because it's just eventually going to whittle down our opponent's resources to being nothing. And we can recur it with Numerous of the Stars. Because it is both a hero and an evil character, and it doesn't start off as an evil character, it can be recurred with Numerous of the Stars. And since we're recurring Numerous of the Stars multiple times, we can continue to recur the Condemned Thief and continue to block with them, continue to take cards out of our opponent's hand, and continue to win the game of attrition. If you haven't guessed by now, the deck works really well in attrition. Because we can get all of our characters back as long as they're not banished with Numerous of the Stars, and most of our good enhancements, we can just continue to grind out value against our opponent. And then over time, we're just going to win the race if they let us go into the long game. So having some options for our evil character that we can recur, which is being the Condemned Thief, or our Lions with the Pride of Lions play, is important. Other than just Pride of Lions, we can also play Stolen Blessing. So we can actually recur Stolen Blessing with Hezron, which is nice to be able to go and put it back on top and then take it and then use it again with like Stubborn Thief or with the Repentant Thief, which Repentant Thief's pretty small. He's a 3/4. He may get initiative, and if he does, we can just try and discard our opponent's hero, force them to have a response. If they do have a response, that's fine. We took a card from their hand. They defeated the Condemned Thief. We just recur Stolen Blessing back and the Condemned Thief again. Do it all over again another turn. So the next turn, essentially. But that's only if we can get Hezron, Eber, and Exiles. Because most of the time, the card we're getting back with Hezron is numerous. So as long as we always have numerous in hand, we always have ways to get back to our characters. You will remain to stop unsuccessful. If all of our characters are removed from battle, we can also just add another hero to battle. That way, if we can't negate something in special initiative and we only have enhancements, we can at least put a character in and then negate that card, bring them all back. So probably have to negate the last. But we do have like Bless the Nation to be able to interrupt the battle, kind of go back and bring those characters back. Leviathan. It is a big old blue enhancement. It's not really relevant because we're not using it for a big old blue enhancement. If we need it as a blue enhancement, we have it. But the character is mostly there for like the lion block. The fact that he's a 13/13 and he is protected from our opponent's dominance, as well as the fact that he can be grabbed with so many of our other cards. So he just fits really well as a defensive blocker in the list and forces our opponent to be able to deal with his sheer bulk. Mary, like I talked about before, as long as we don't have an enhancement in our deck, we're protecting our meek heroes from harm. This is all the time, even outside of battle, so it's really effective to keep our characters safe. And then when we go in with our big band and we shuffle something away with Noah, we can just continue to have all of our meat characters protected in battle and then force our opponent to try to solve that. Oath of Purity is the bounce. We're using it to usually bounce our characters. We can also use it to bounce our opponent's characters like Jesse. And then if we really need to, we can use it with Rainbow Noah to ban to all Old Testament humans. So in the event that we need to do that, we at least have the option. Stolen Blessing, both sides of it are relevant. We can use it to go ahead and play an enhancement from our opponent's hand regardless of Brigade, which can be really nice because we take a card out of their hand, we see their hand, and then we also play that card against their opponent. So forces them to like negate their own card or maybe negate Stolen Blessing. But it won't, if they negate Stolen Blessing, then it won't negate the previous card. It will just put the previous card back into their hand. And then also as a evil enhancement that negates a good card or discards a hero. So relevant. Coliseum line I talked about before. Being able to discard your opponent's enhancements is nice. You can get good seed out of their territory, or like a Faith of Abraham, and you get to play an enhancement. And then also just being able to ban lines. Having Coliseum line, Hungry line, and Negev line in the same list allows us to ban all of our lines together even without Pride of Lions. So it gives us that big number, and then we can defend it with cards like Seized by Babylon. Like I talked about Pride before, Pride's here as kind of like a attrition style defense. Forcing our opponent to deal with our lions multiple times causes a lot of strain on their offense. So having it in here is really relevant. Foreign Wives, if our opponent draws 5 or more cards, she's just protected from all the cards that our opponent plays. So we can bring her in with Deceiver, or we can grab her. There's another way of grabbing her out of the reserve. I'm just forgetting what it is right now. Oh, we can lurk her in, and we can get her with Babel. We could get her with Crowd's Choice if we really needed to. And I feel like there's one more way that I'm just forgetting about, but that's all right. Just there's multiple ways of being able to get her out of the reserve. If we're kind of struggling about doing that, maybe we have to move her to the main deck. But I don't think there are any issues. Like, you just go to Deceiver to Foreign Wives, and their opponent has to deal with Foreign Wives who's CBN, so find a way around her protection. So Very good block. If our opponent can't get around the protection, it's just kind of an auto block, and it's reusable. So forces our opponent to solve that problem multiple times until they get rid of Foreign Wives. And then the last card is Covenant with Philistia. Covenant with Philistia can be used as a battle winner, and it can also be used as a way to get our animals from our reserve and draw cards. So like I was talking about before, you can use it to go and stack the top of your deck with cards with the star abilities, and then activate your Book of the Covenant to go ahead and play Covenant with Philistia to grab those cards as your top deck. It's good to know that we only have 2 animals in the reserve, so we can only grab 4 cards or 6 cards with Covenant with Philistia. But once we've exhausted that, we can then bounce Covenant with Philistia with cards like Eber or Noah, and then use it as a battle winner, even if we did play it as a Covenant. So we have ways of being able to get it off of our book to be able to play it again. And Book of the Covenant protects against evil cards, so it's not stopping Noah or Eber from bouncing it. And that's the list. So if you guys have questions about anything that's in here, just let me know. I want to do a gameplay video or a Goldfish video about like what the deck looks like when it's operating. So that'll probably come out sometime soon. But for now, that's pretty much everything. This is my updated Patriarch list. It runs really well. I've played it in a game already. It can really play the grind game, and it's really fast. So if you're interested in checking out Patriarchs, I definitely suggest trying out a list similar to this one, or try out Tyler's list, or Mr. Hiatus. So thanks again, guys. Just let me know what you guys want to see for content in the future. Sometimes I can kind of like get stuck and not know what I want to come out with. So I was able to find something that I was interested in doing, and so I put out a video. So I'm not going to be able to do this, bring out videos like every week consistently, but I'll try to bring them out as much as I can. So anyways, thanks for watching till the end, guys. I'll see you guys around. Bye.